Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Good afternoon and welcome to Tall Tales for a Monday, September 30th, year of our Lord 2019. For those of you in the government of Guam, you've got less than an hour to spend money because the year is up. This is fiscal year eve here on Guam and in many places throughout the United States, but right now, the time is now. It doesn't matter what time, when the revenues come in. So the news says we've got another $27 million or so to receive. But if you want to spend it, you got to spend it before 5 o'clock this afternoon and get the paperwork in. So I'll let you go ahead and do that while I do this, which is to sit in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in a week, 7 days from now, right here. Next Monday, 4 o'clock, Bob Klitzkie will be back with us, you and me both, here on Tall Tales. So let's hear it for Bob. Hey, let's hear it for Bob. How you doing? I am looking forward to him. I'm looking forward to his return because I am curious to hear what he thinks of the goings-on in this world since he's been traveling and had a chance to, ponder reality from a perspective that many of us, consider a luxury, which is travel. So we'll be listening for him on Monday. But in the meantime, I'll be with you for the next, for the days of this week, and I'm not going to get into a Second Amendment right now. We're still waiting on what's going to happen between the Congress and the President as far as any movement. And no movement is a movement, right? It's a possibility that there will be no movement at all at the federal level on gun control legislation, and that would be just fine with many people. Not fine with others, and so it'll, the noise will continue, but we'll be watching that. So let's go now to Zami Ikatni. And again, our telephone number here at the station is 888-8255. If I say something that inspires you to go to the phones and call us and share your perspective, or if there's something you just got to get off your chest or you need to share with other listeners here at Tall Tales, by all means, give us a call here at 888-8255, or you can find us on Facebook. I'm on live, Facebook Live, and you can become part of the conversation by registering your comments there, and I'll read them out over the air if they're, air playable. Let's see. As of Friday, this past Friday, the tally between the Guam Daily Post and the Pacific Daily News is, as far as the Blue Star, the coveted Blue Star, is Post 144 and PDN 54. And of course, being a Monday, they've got extra chances to earn a star for something that came out on Saturday or Sunday. So, in effect, there could be 6 stars issued today. But what are the chances of that? I even saw where Guam Daily Post reprinted a Washington Post editorial, which was kind of a shock since as I've been banging on, Bob and both Bob and me have been banging on PDN for reprinting USA Today editorials. So Let's just go dive right in. Today's PDN editorial is called Burying the Truth, and it has to do with goings-on in Washington, D.C. It's a USA Today column, and I just don't want to get into it. I just don't want to get into it. Enough will come out on this subject, and so I'm not so much avoiding it as it's still cooking, and so we'll just leave it at that. The Guam Daily Post editorial is Legislative Public Safety Chairman should step aside at least temporarily. And this editorial has a lot of meat to it, and it's quite a few aspects that are cited to support the thesis of the editorial writer. Let's go ahead and consider this for a moment. Former Jonya Mayor and now Senator Jose Pito Terlahi must relinquish his chairmanship over the Guam Legislature's committee that has oversight over public safety, the mayors and the mayor's offices. The legislature's Democratic leadership needs to replace Terlahi with someone who isn't conflicted. While legislative committee chairpersons are normally quick to react on issues that their committees have jurisdictions over, Terlahi's response was slow and lacked force when he publicly reacted to one of the largest public corruption cases on Guam in recent years, allegedly involving public safety, which falls under his jurisdiction. The federal indictment against Jonya Mayor Jesse Blas alleges Blas used his role as a public official to receive or extort bribes in exchange for the alleged use of U.S. Postal Service mailboxes adjacent to his office as a distribution point for methamphetamine. Blas has entered a plea of not guilty. In a federal hearing against Blas, an FBI agent also made allegations that some of the Jonya Mayor's alleged dealings also allegedly involve Senator Terlahi's son, Joey Terlahi, one unnamed police officer, and certain unnamed marshals in the Guam judiciary. The FBI agent's testimony alleged the mayor used his connections to get detainees released from jail. The mayor fathered a child of one of the convicted female prisoners in a drug and gun case, court papers show. Senator Terlahi's personal connections are too close to this public corruption case. No matter how impartial he might view himself to be, the appearance of his conflicts will cloud what his committee does. The senator's son was a court marshal prior to the Leon Guerrero administration's appointment of him as Deputy of Corrections Deputy Director. He hasn't been charged based on publicly available documents, but Joey Terlahi resigned last week, a day after his name was mentioned in federal court as an alleged associate of the indicted mayor. The indicted mayor was Senator Terlahi's administrative assistant when Jose Terlahi, Pito, the senator, was the mayor of Jonya. Earlier this year, the senator employed on his senatorial staff a woman named Daylene Wacky, who, along with co-defendant Joven Santos, agreed to forfeit two sets of cash, $13,554 and another set of cash totaling $30,317 in 2016, after the Drug Enforcement Administration seized the funds in a drug raid. Wacky and Santos' forfeiture was a civil action. At the time of the forfeiture, Wacky and Santos were staffers in the Jonya mayor's office when Senator Terlahi was the mayor of Jonya. When Jose Terlahi became senator this year, he hired Wacky in his senatorial office as a legislative aide. Senator Terlahi a few days ago said, quote, "In the matter regarding my son, I have no comment. I have no knowledge of any investigation into him and will likewise let the judicial process work its course." The senator also declined to comment on the federal charges against Blas. As this is a pending federal investigation, I will let the judicial process work itself out. I will have no comment at this time, the senator said. On Friday, Senator Terlahi did provide additional comment in response to questions the Guam Daily Post sent to senators in the Legislative Public Safety Committee, but the response, while it lacked concern for the public's safety, did offer continued support for law enforcers in general. Quote, allegations are just allegations, and until they have been proven true, I stand with our island's law enforcement community, end quote, Senator Tlahi said. Quote, however, I am concerned about the possibility that corruption may exist in small pockets of our law enforcement agencies. I am working with my committee to ensure going forward that there is no corruption at our prison, and will also address the police department as well. It's time, end quote. It's time for the Democratic senators who have control over the legislature's leadership to put the public before their colleague. Senator Tlahi must step away from the Public Safety Committee chairmanship. And that is the editorial in today's Guam Daily Post. And if you've got a comment on it, I welcome your call at 888-8255, or you can find us on Facebook and you can let me know there what you think of this. Let me tell you, while I'm waiting for your call, let me tell you what I think about this. No. His position does not participate in or influence the investigation or criminal justice process. In fact, what they're saying here, I didn't have this as prepared remarks, but the editorial says in the third paragraph, while legislative committee chairpersons are normally quick to react on issues that their committees have jurisdictions over, Tlahi's response was slow and lacked force when he publicly reacted to one of the largest public corruption cases on Guam in recent years, allegedly involving public safety, which falls under his jurisdiction. Senators aren't supposed to react. They're supposed to craft policy. And were any policies violated, found wanting? And he's only the chairman. He has ministerial duties. This is not his job, his place, nothing. Anyway, let's continue. He had more influence when his son was deputy director of DOC, which he and the governor did not consider a problem. For a senator to have that kind of influence over a deputy director, this is a close relationship. That the deputy director of DOC, his father is the chairman of the oversight committee, and the son was the appointee of the governor, who seemed to think that was all right. It's okay. It could even be of benefit, right? And they are elected officials. I mean, not the father and the governor. So, the senator and the governor. Perhaps they should have known through background investigation who the son's friends were and what they were capable of. As far as the drug connection of Senator Pito Tlahi's staff, as an official the people of Guam elected, he is accountable at the polls. For those of you not currently involved in enforcing the law, we remind you, as a public service here on Tall Tales, as an official that the people of Guam elected, he is accountable at the polls and not immune from prosecution for any infraction he may have himself committed. So it's not guilt by association. Nobody seemed to worry that two of his staffers, when he was mayor, forfeited $44,000 to the DEA when they were on his staff as mayor of Jonya. The people of Guam still elected him, even though that was already known. And then he still hired them. And there was no outcry before this week. He still hired Waki and Santos. Oh, he hired Waki for his senatorial office. Okay, so, Most importantly, if he does not faithfully lead as chairman the Public Safety Committee's oversight and bill review activities to the satisfaction of his Democratic colleagues or even his staff, he can be fingered. If he's dragging his feet, how many people down there are going to know that? They're all responsible at the polls. The people's interest is protected by leaving him in place and under scrutiny by investigators and the public and his colleagues and his staff and the press. Take him out. You take him out? What kind of influence does he have? He's still an elected official. He's still going to vote on the issues. But he has no responsibility for the way the paperwork flows through the Public Safety Committee. But the vice chair is supposed to take over, and he just sits back and draws his salary and doesn't have to take responsibility. His people are still there. The committee staffers are still being paid. There's still the people who he put in. Really? Wow. I'm having a little trouble pulling up the Facebook page on my computer. So, let's see if I can find the let's see. Oh, well, I'll see if I can access the Facebook comments. Enter the security code. Sorry, dude. Don't have the code. And that's all right. That's all right. I'll see if I can get your comments, get access in the next little while. Anyway, that's my take on this. The editorial is completely off base. Senators are not elected to react and to opine and to jump up and express indignation at things going on in the judiciary or in law enforcement. When somebody is hauled before when there's an investigation going on that involves the police department and the attorney general and the courts, with FBI and the courts. No, you stand back and you exactly what Senator Peter Tlahi has said. He's not involved, but he is involved because of his relationships. But he's not. These are allegations. Let's let the investigation, competent investigation, take its course. But there's no reason to call for his head, Peter Tlahi's head, for what? He didn't do anything. And if he did, we'll find out soon enough. I don't, why would we think he did anything? I am not that cynical to suspect anyone of anything. If it happens, then we'll find out that when it happens, or if it happens. So I'm not going to read Burying the Truth. There's no star for today's Daily Post editorial. They really missed the mark on that one. Yesterday's Pacific Sunday News editorial was called Consider Change to Medical Malpractice Laws. I'm not going to read it out, but I just thought it was pretty lame. And even though, we would consider it here, there's no mention of effective medical peer review. This is a common practice in the medical community where people who are in the know of what kinds of procedures should have been followed by medical staff, by medical professionals. Peer review. Now, I'm not talking about the criminal or civil liability, but one of the key elements that should have been mentioned in yesterday's editorial is whether there's a working peer review process. And how does it tie back in to the potential for the suspension of a doctor's license or any kind of if there's wrongdoing, that it would be found out by the hospital or by the medical professionals' peers in the profession. And I believe it's one of the requirements for hospital accreditation. And I also think it's part of the benefits of being on a dedicated medical staff of GMH versus just having hospital privileges. And I think even with hospital privileges, there's some cover afforded by the hospital's procedures. But those hospital procedures have to work. And this ties back into the licensure board, which is at Public Health, and it's run again by peers, which they're the ones who review the credentials of an incoming doctor and to safeguard the health of the people of Guam and safety of the people of Guam. These all tie together. But the PDN editors that wrote the opinion yesterday in Pacific Sunday News, and also Speaker Barnes, are not getting to the root of the problem. There are solutions here, but if they're not all together, there's not going to be any movement on this issue at all, because it'll always go back to whether the people who are doing the assessing, whether it's a jury or a mediation board, whether they are professionally qualified to pass judgment on the professional activities of a doctor. It's just like the Bar Association. You can't sue a lawyer for malpractice. You take your complaint to the bar, and then the lawyer's peers will examine the evidence and decide whether that person should still be a lawyer in this town or not. The same thing is supposed to happen with doctors. If it's broken down, that may be one of the reasons why there's this outcry for medical malpractice changes, because there isn't enough policing, self-policing of the profession. In the Guam Daily Post yesterday, the editorial was, "Let's help our neighbors and others protect themselves from dengue." And it is also lame. It's a soft rewrite of the public health campaign, the publicity campaign against dengue fever. And there's not enough bite. As encouraged by Governor Lou Leon Guerrero on Friday, and this is a direct quote, "I want you all to go out there and fight the bite." Fight the bite. That's our governor's own encouragement here. And so that's Zami Ikatni for a Monday, September 30th, fiscal year eve here on Tall Tales. Let's take a break here, Real Joe, and we'll come back in just a few moments with more Tall Tales.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. He'll be back in a week. He'll be back here next Monday. Our telephone number here at the studio is 888-8255. Happy to hear from you this afternoon or anytime. But this afternoon, you can share your comments with the public, listening public right here on The Point. Under the heading of other editorials and stories worthy of comment, there are a bunch. But at the top of the list is this one. It's in today's PDN on page 4. It only has 4 paragraphs. But it's all meat. It is a solid, solid story. And so much more than meets the eye. Let me just go ahead and read this to you. And it's compiled from staff reports. There's no byline, just from staff reports. Republican senators discuss Guam's public hospital, war claims, and more during their 5-day Washington, D.C. trip, according to an announcement Sunday. Senators Tello Taitagui, Will Castro, and Luis Muñoz were joined by Republican Party of Guam officers Tony Ada, Juan Benitez, and Margaret Metcalf in the nation's capital to meet with officials from the U.S. Department of the Interior, Health and Human Services, and the White House. Unpaid war claims, decolonization, inter-island travel and shipping cost reduction, and food security through sustainable agri-commerce. Food security through sustainable agri-commerce were discussed, according to the announcement. The group also discussed extending Medicaid funding, building a new Guam Memorial Hospital Authority facility, and the possibility of a regional pharmaceutical distribution center. Rarely do you have a news story that is packed with so much meat. Almost every single one of those items is worthy of comment. Margaret Metcalf, Juan Benitez, the White House, agri-commerce, inter-island travel and shipping cost reduction. You know, that you had 3 out of the 4. Oh, is it 4 or 5? Let's see, who was missing of the minority in the legislature? Okay, James Moylan and, well, I guess, and Mary. Yeah, thank you, Real Joe. Yes, you know, Joe, you can jump in anytime you like. You know, if you want to jump in and go, you're a real horses. You know what? This afternoon.
I'm not much for jumping. I'm a great fly on the wall.
Or you could use your paint gun, and you can put big paint blots on the glass in between us if you're
I'm
like.
a fly on the wall.
Oh, don't let me swat you. Don't. Yeah. Can mistake you. You know what I did over the weekend, Real Joe? Just to get just a little levity in the middle of this article. I found a container in my yard that had some mosquito larvae. So I dumped it. As I was dumping it out, I dumped some of it into a jar, a quart jar, and then put a paper towel over, and then I stuck it, in the kitchen so I could hatch them and see what kinds of mosquitoes are in my backyard.
And I just don't let them get loose.
No, I'm not going to let them get loose. I got them, under lock and key, but, mosquito lock and key. But, it's good to know what kinds of mosquitoes you got going. You can't just smash them and forget it. You got to, look at them. And then my boys, when they were out work in the yard over the weekend, they also were stopping and looking at all the different bugs in the yard. And we found this one bug. It's very, very short, very small, but it's a blue-gray fly. Big wings, but a really short body. But wings like a butterfly. It was weird. So my son was taking pictures of it and, playing around with that. So, but, it's one of those things. Now there's all kinds of interest in bugs. Ichthyology, is it? Ichthyology is fish.
Etymology.
Etymology, right? Yeah, thank you.
I believe it's etymology.
Yeah, etymology. So, see, you can jump in. Yeah, fly on the wall that you are.
Yeah.
You would know that. Okay. So, that's okay. I think I'm on. Let's see. I'm on Facebook. Let's see. Where's my?
Just go to the point.
Yeah, I know, but
just kidding.
it didn't. There's like nothing
just
below like
kidding.
3 articles, and then it stops. So I'm just wondering, and nothing pops up in the favorites. So I'm just wondering what's going on here. Anyway, so I can take a look at your comments. Man, it's not giving me anything.
So we've had a lot of rain lately. Causes turbidity in the internet. Internet turbidity.
That could be it. My goodness. I'm searching for your comments right now. Okay? And when I do find them, I will share them with the rest of the listening audience. Anyway, this article is really interesting. And so I was wondering whether the Republican Party, whether this story is the Republican Party of Guam's, or the minority, not including Mary Torres and James Moylan, who have their own agendas, but this is the other Republican Party agenda for the 35th Guam legislature, or if it's a 2020 candidate's campaign platform, because these are all new or ongoing, right? And I wonder whether this communication that they're making with federal leaders is coordinated with Guam's elected Democratic leaders so that Guam has a Team Guam approach. Or are they pulling a page out of Delegate San Nicolas's approach to go out there and claim credit for being out front on these issues, regardless of the subsequent need for local consensus? Sometimes I wonder what the people that are out there acting in our name, what they think they're doing. Is this coordinated? Is this something they sat down with Governor Leon Guerrero and said, we're going to go off and do this? Can we just talk about it so that we don't say anything that's at cross purposes with what you're saying? So that we know what you're saying to these very same people. Or we'll go carry the water knowing that we've sat down with you first and then you'll back us up. Is the world here on Guam big enough for this initiative to float to the surface so that we get some too? We get some airtime, we get some credit, we get, for initiating these, and that you won't kick us in the shins over it, or write to these very same people tomorrow or the next day and say, next time you see these guys, shoot them. Because they're not there. They're hot dogging. You know what I mean? Are they coordinating with other elected officials so that we have a Team Guam approach? This is something that goes back decades. It goes back to the 1970s. Whenever Guam has a difference between one set of leaders and another set of elected leaders, back in the States, they don't go forward. It just kills the initiative. It makes for nice, lots of good headlines and lots of smiley faces in the press and lots of stories in the press. It makes it look like they're doing their job. But it kills the initiative as far as the feds are concerned. They just don't have to deal with us if we don't have it together. If there's no consensus on Guam, they're not going to take it as a bipartisan issue in the states. So they won't even bother moving it forward because it's a partisan matter that hasn't been resolved. It's not a Guam request. It's some politicians of Guam are requesting. And that just doesn't get it. That's the reason for the consensus. So I just thought that was a really interesting story. Another one. In today's PDN, on page 16, next to the USA Today editorial, is a column by Bill Cundiff. He does a column called Veterans Corner. And it's really interesting. This is called Shop Military Exchange Online. Now, you remember that there's an expansion going on soon for certain other people who have history of military service to become eligible for base exchange privileges. But now the exchanges are allowing shopping online. And he goes through and Bill Cundiff goes through and explains for if you are eligible how you can do this. Shipping is free on orders over $49 or when you use Military Star Card. And you can have exclusive credit and financing options when you use the Military Star Card as well. And it doesn't grant access to military installations. It was instituted on November 11, 2017. But for those who are eligible to participate in the base exchange program, but you don't have to go on base or you may not have access to the base, you can still participate in the retail outlet of the base exchange system if you are eligible, by registering and becoming, establishing your eligibility. And it's a great article for those who are eligible. And so I want to recognize and thank Bill Cundiff with his column Veterans Corner that appears today on page 16 in the PDN. If you are interested further in this, that's a good place to go and take a look at the article, full of great information. It's great news for eligible veterans and more bad news for local retailers and rev and tax as it tries to capture the, quote, use tax. The military exchange program is just keeping up with the times. I don't have a problem with this at all because they're doing what it is that retailers are supposed to do and distribution, wholesale retail is supposed to do. But, from where I'm sitting right now, I'm asking, when will GovGuam's top dollar tax administrators and policy designers, the appointees of the current administration, right-size our tax system to be revenue neutral? This is like, before and after the cutover. Revenue neutral. So it's not more taxes are being taken out of the economy, but to be less regressive and more efficient to enforce. When are they going to design it? When are they going to actually bring us forward into the 21st century instead of the gross receipts tax and Section 30 monies of the past, the last 40, 50 years? This is embarrassing that the exchange system can start from 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, can start an online shopping program And we can't even figure out how to do a sales tax. It's embarrassing. It shows that our leaders are not ready for big-time political change, political status change. And this is what happens when I read the newspaper. I think of these things. Okay, are we ready? Do we think we're ready? Are we showing how ready we are to assume control over, our own well-being, or become a state, or whatever the political status options are? Are we? Okay, what else was interesting in the news today? I'm just zipping right on through these. Here we go. GMH diverts patients. You read this. This is in today's Post. Front page, top headline. Hospital faces bed shortage. And they said, well, we were on divert status due to all ER beds already filled with patients waiting for inpatient beds. This is GMH Administrator Lillian Perez-Posadas confirmed on Sunday. She said it's a shortage of telemetry and medical surgical inpatient beds that caused an overflow of patients in the emergency room. And then a few weeks ago, residents reported family members and friends having to wait in the ER for hours on end before they were admitted into one of the rooms in the hospital as an inpatient. Perez-Posadas said there was a shortage of beds and nurses. Okay, I can understand that. And then GMH said they haven't been able to hire enough nurses as needed. They were hopeful that a reevaluation of government salaries would mean an increase in nurses' salaries, making it easier to recruit new nurses and retain those already on staff. So, in fact, they need more money to pay for current level of service, not for improved levels of service, but just to maintain the service that they're designed now to deliver. But I don't hear about them hiring nurses. I hear them hiring nurse assistants, ones that are not even LPN, hiring lots of hot bodies to do direct patient oversight, but not RNs. I don't hear about them hiring RNs. And we need specialized RNs for these places like, the telemetry and ICU, neonatal ICU, right? We need these specialty nurses. But the salaries, but they don't seem to be cutting down any salaries or dropping any admin positions in order to afford these medically necessary positions. And this is the thing. It's good for patients that there's another hospital on island to go to. GMH is too inflexible to triage nursing staff or even have portable equipment and beds to cover operational medical needs. What will happen in a crisis? We'll continue this after the break. Let's take a break here, Real Joe. And we'll come back. We'll continue to talk about GMH diverting patients to GRMC.
Connecticut water treatment customers don't keep coming back. They're satisfied the first time. That's right. Connecticut non-electric water treatment systems take care of your water problems, and you won't need to keep calling us for repairs. Join the list of satisfied Connecticut customers who purchased their non-electric water systems years ago and are still enjoying clean, conditioned water without any hassles from timers or circuit boards.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Get the latest updates as Blake and Mike break down the upcoming action. Get your game on with the boys on the hotline, 888-TALK, or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on The Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Hey, music. Love it. Thank you. So before the break, we were talking about GMH diverts patients. It's a page one story on today's Guam Daily Post. You know, what's going to happen if we have a crisis? You know, we have a, I don't want to say anything and jinx us here, but anytime when there's like a flood of people going to the hospital, presenting themselves at the hospital for beyond urgent care that could be diverted to FHP, urgent care, or, beyond that, ER. The process is called triage. But if they've got not enough telemetry and medical surgical beds, then that means that they aren't even able to handle overflow for a medical crisis. They should be able to. They should be able to expand to meet the medical needs of the community. They should have the equipment. They should have the nurses. They should have the recall listings. They should be able to put people on and deal with what they've got. But no. But do they have a approved standard protocol to do this? Doesn't the ER bill enough to cover these contingencies? To me, from where I'm sitting, what's lacking here is not space or nurses, but administrative moxie. If we can take comfort in the administration's claims of confidence in GMH governance and management, then we should recognize the referral of patients to GRMC for what it is: government business for and reliance on GRMC to meet Guam's routine health care requirements. And maybe that's a more direct interpretation of the facts that we see before us today. Was there not policy by the legislature, signed by the governor, for GRMC to be included as in the government of Guam health insurance plan that GovGuam policy healthcare coverage policyholders would have access to GRMC, and that was specific. GovGuam also has extended a QC to GRMC to encourage the investors to place that hospital here and to make it a going concern. So the government's invested in it. The people of Guam are invested in GRMC. So it makes sense to share the load with GRMC, ER, and whatever else, specialty care. And that's actually a closer relationship. It's almost as if we don't have to fix GMH because we, the people of Guam, have GRMC. And if need be, we'll just go there. And GMH can strangle and twist in the wind and leak and continue to be a political hiring, free-for-all. And cry for tens of millions of dollars a year and pat themselves on the back every day with a job well done. I don't mean the medical, I mean the administrators. Regardless of whether they're actually able to meet all the requirements for accreditation. So, there's much, much, much more to this story as we go along. every time it rains, we have places on the streets that don't drain, and we have places in the hospital that have standing water from leaks in the roof. And neither one is being addressed. And every time it rains, and it's the rainy season. So, it's like normal. This is normal. Yeah. Before I start a new article, let's just go ahead and take a look at the help wanted ads that caught my eye this week. Let's see. I saw this here. Payless, of course, has a tractor driver, full-time flexible, or full-time flexible. I'm not quite sure whether it's one position or more than one position. But, valid C endorsement license, DOT medical clearance, and a health certificate. 1 year experience operating tractor trailers, box trucks, and other delivery vehicles, and may require general warehouse work. This is the one that really got me. TG Engineers, PC, Tor Gudmundson's shop. He's looking for a senior staff civil engineer, civil and structural designers, a project manager with 5 years minimum experience, technical proposal writer, and an accounting/admin assistant. We offer competitive salaries, excellent benefits, and opportunities for growth. Those are good jobs. Those are real good jobs. And, college graduates should have a good shot at these. Also, down at American Jobs Center, the Guam Department of Labor, they're looking for 20 electricians with 2 years experience, and they're willing to pay just under $18 an hour. I didn't go online to find out what it is, what's the going rate for an electrician with 2 years experience who can ensure conformance to building and safety codes, study specifications and blueprints, sketches, or building plans. But I'm pretty sure it's not just a little under $18 an hour. And the music starts. It's a minute before 5 o'clock. You know what that means? It's Fox News coming up at 5, and we'll be back after our thrilling halftime show to bring to you more Tall Tales. I'm still waiting on your call here at 888-8255. We'll be listening for you after this break, so come back and join us again in a few minutes here on Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Firing back. I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. President Trump calls a whistleblower's complaint about a phone call with Ukraine totally inaccurate. The president said in a tweet Sunday night he wants to meet his accuser who claimed he pressured Ukraine's president to dig up dirt on Joe Biden, leading House Democrats to launch an impeachment inquiry.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said last week that for her, the impeachment inquiry is not something to be celebrated or relished. She even said this is a sad time for the country. Later this week, the intelligence community's inspector general is expected to sit down with a congressional committee. That's supposed to happen behind closed doors. Most of Congress remains on a 2-week recess. Lawmakers, though, have not said publicly how long their impeachment inquiry may last.
Fox's Mark Meredith in Washington. The Saudi crown prince says he did not order the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, but he takes full responsibility. Mohammed bin Salman, in an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes, called it a mistake by agents of the Saudi government.
There isn't an official statement announced by the American government in this regard. There isn't clear information or evidence that someone close to me did something to that effect. There are charges and they're being investigated. But again, you cannot imagine the pain that we suffered, especially as the Saudi government, from a crime such as this one.
Saudi Arabia has charged 11 people in the case. World leaders left last week's UN General Assembly wondering whether there could ever be a deal between Iran and the U.S. over Iran's nuclear program. Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif on NBC's Meet the Press.
Not a new deal. They have to show that they respect their signature. Unless they show that they respect their signature, there's no point in negotiating with them because you set a bad precedent.
The Trump administration pulled out of the UN-brokered Iran deal officially last year. Fashion chain Forever 21 filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The destination for teen shoppers will close up to 178 stores. America's listening to Fox News.
Circle K has a 3-pound rotisserie chicken, now available for the introductory price of $9.99. It's the biggest, tastiest, and most affordable rotisserie chicken of its kind on island. Save even more by getting a family meal with 2 sides and a bottle of wine for only $25.99. The Circle K rotisserie chicken. Get yours today. Circle K. Take it easy.
GoFundMe has shut down the account of a Connecticut banker accused of killing a hotel worker in the Caribbean.
The fundraising account set up for UBS banker Scott Hapgood had raised $250,000 when it got the hook by GoFundMe. Hapgood is charged with manslaughter in the death of a hotel worker in Anguilla. The company says it made the decision following requests from the dead man's supporters. The family called it the epitome of white privilege, allowing him to buy his way out of a murder. Well, this is not the first time GoFundMe has shut down a campaign. Earlier this year, GoFundMe accounts set up to help singer R. Kelly pay for his legal fees for his child sex abuse charges were pulled after GoFundMe determined that they violated their terms of service. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
2 men died when the last car on a roller coaster derailed at an amusement park in Mexico City. The victims, who were 18 and 21 years old, sustained fatal head injuries. Officials say a mechanical failure caused the car to come loose and drop 33 feet to the ground. 2 women were also hurt. A Minnesota man with multiple DUIs gets prison time for a serious crash.
60-year-old Marshall Knoll has 18 drunken driving convictions, and now he'll serve 20 months in prison for causing a crash that seriously injured 2 people in 2017. Prosecutors say Knoll was speeding when he rear-ended another vehicle. One of that vehicle's occupants suffered multiple injuries, including fractured ribs, a broken arm, and bleeding in his brain. Another of the vehicle's passengers required spine surgery. Knoll pleaded guilty to first-degree driving while impaired in exchange for the dismissal of 2 more serious charges. Prosecutors say Knoll was driving with a suspended license and was high on illegal drugs. Sal Giangrasso, Fox News.
The first film about the 12 boys and their soccer coach trapped in a flooded cave in Thailand is premiering in South Korea. The director, Tom Waller, says the cave was filmed at the exterior of the actual cave. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Chili's Grill and Bar is now open at the 2nd floor of the Two Monsands Plaza.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Come and see what the buzz is all about. Grab your friends and savor their sizzling fajitas, big mouth burgers, and fall off the bone smoked ribs while sipping on their world-famous Presidente margaritas. Treat yourself to an elevated experience at Chili's and feel why they're like no place else. Now open on the 2nd floor of Two Monsands Plaza. Together, we Chili's.
I'm a working mom and could really use more hours in my day. Thankfully, my non-electric Kinetico water treatment system has simplified my life. It's easier to clean my home with Kinetico conditioned water. No more scrubbing tubs or wiping water spots. Cleaners work better and last longer. And all the Kinetico drinking water we want is right here. No more lugging home bottled water. All this, and I'm saving money too, thanks to Kinetico.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in 7 days. Yeah, next Monday at this time, we will be enjoying Bob Klitzkie's perspectives and his voice, his presence, his wit, and even his view on Facebook Live. Lots happening. Lots happening. Just during the 5 o'clock break, a couple things going on. Did you hear in the Fox News about Forever 21's bankruptcy, closing 171 stores? Do the customers of the who are planning to buy clothes down and regularly do buy at the Forever 21 store down at GPO, do they know that this is happening? This is not good news. We always want, businesses to succeed, but it is a sort of like the circle of life, in business. It's, despite the, as much as you want to be forever 21, it just isn't possible. Sears, right? Sears Roebuck. What other big companies? IBM. What other big companies have gone pretty much by the wayside? Bell Telephones, right? You get the idea. It's just the circle of life. But that came out. Just learned this during the 5 o'clock news. Also, online, I'm taking a look at trying to get in to find your comments. And I found this item here. PBS Guam First Annual Gala, celebrating 49 years of local programming. An event going down at Hilton Guam Resort and Spa this coming Friday, October 4th at 6 p.m. Black tie event. $250 a person. And I just sent them a message, put a comment there. Because I was GM over at PBS Guam for 3 years. And I can't afford that ticket on fixed income. But I'm a big fan of the programming and of the service that PBS Guam provides. And so I'm happy that they're going to have this and wish I could go. But personally can't afford it. And so that's that. Also, I found here where there's Guam Media Old Timers is listed, and I'm going to go ahead and join that group because I'm an old timer. If you figure out that I've been around since in the media, active since 85 locally. Since 81 on my FCC license. But I digress. Because we're talking about other things going on here. It's like, Guam Transportation Improvement Program. Or more illegal dumping in Dedidum. Right? So we're going to talk about those next. But I just wanted to take a look at there. Now that I've, and also, let's see, Candid News, Troy Torres, has got Fired GMH Employees Part 1, and he's starting out with Benita Manglonia. So first part of a multi-part series on GMH employees, whom the current and previous administration have culled, despite significant contributions they made in the face of tremendous adversity to the medical needs of the people of Guam. Admin people who have been canned. And these may have been part of the problem, but certainly the problem hasn't been solved by canning them. And that is a good place to start looking. If anyone needs to be looking at anything, that's a good place to look. My Facebook seems to be working a lot better than it did before the break. So let's see if I can pull up your comments. And there. It seems to be progressing now. And so I'm curious as to what you guys have been saying since in the past hour here on Tall Tales. So let's see, have a moment. Okay. Sherry Iriarty says afternoon. And so does Valine Iriarty. Afternoons. And good to have you both. I was there's a prominent ad in the paper today for a couple of relatives, and so hopefully I'll be able to join everyone. Tito Guay says, congrats to Guam men's softball team, Giza 5-3 record, only losing to the number one team in the nation by 1 point both games. Wow. Guam men's softball team, Giza, with a 5-3 record, only losing to the number one team in the nation by 1 point in both games. Congratulations. And Bustamante Archie says, Paishout po ako, sir. I hope that's not something that's can't say on the air, but I will credit that to Bustamante Archie, who's chiming in this afternoon. Facebook Live is now working. Our telephone number here is 888-8255. I welcome your call. More illegal dumping in Dededo. It's an article that popped up in today's Post, also on page 1 of the Post today. Let's see. I'm too fast to put this thing away. Oh, there it is. It's right next to the story about GMH diverting patients. And you know where this place is. Okay, if you drive by that place, you know exactly where the place is. It's the same place I was saying that has standing water in the culverts right on Marine Drive. In front of the GPA substation, Marine Drive north of Dededo, next to Prestige Auto and Lucky Supplies. There's an access road that is on the property line that is in common with the former DPW solid waste transfer station. And you know that transfer station was closed to protect the water well field underneath it. And over the past year or so, that little road going in has been blocked off with coral loads dumped in there every now and then. About maybe a month ago, there was a really white load of coral dumped in there to keep people from going back there. But as the article says, that there's heaps of trash 6 to 8 feet high in some areas are piling up, some of it from GPA's 2017 Liberation Day float. Other pieces look like electrical equipment and appear to have been pushed or moved from the substation property onto another portion of the land, essentially forming another dump site. There's been some equipment working in there before they put the coral down. They were sort of shoving, I don't know, maybe they had a backhoe and they shoved some stuff around to sort of clear the land, but there's still a lot there. And then Cruz, this guy Bill Cruz, Dededo resident, said he pointed to power poles above. It's the same as those. He said it appears GPA workers were dumping the trash. GPA spokesman Art Perez says the power agency had investigated the site, and he said GPA has removed and cleared such debris in the past, adding that the access road had been blocked off to prevent further dumping. And GIPA spokesman Nicholas Lee said the report of illegal dumping at the former waste transfer station has been routed to Guam EPA's Solid Waste Department for investigation. But it's not the front gate of the property along Batulo Road. It's the back fence where they have a property line in common with the GPA substation. It's it would be funny if it wasn't serious. It's just not right. Just not right. And anything, they still should be cleaning those culverts. If not just because they need to be done. You know, they're clearing roadside, and they're clearing from underneath the lines, but they can't clear the culverts in front of them. And DPW can't either. They could, but they don't. And they even had crew out there, but they haven't gotten there. If only for the mosquitoes. Guam Transportation Improvement Program. So notice, again in today's paper, for a notice of public meeting to be held this coming Wednesday, October 2nd, at Tamuning Senior Center from 6 to 8 p.m. And in this announcement, it shows what looks to be a book, the cover of a book. Ad paid for by the Department of Public Works Federal Aid Highway Program through funds received from the Federal Highway Administration. And then it has a website. Well, you know, they haven't posted the item that they're going to have the hearing on. Usually you post the item and say, yeah, we're going to have this hearing, and so come. And I requested a copy. Ray Gibson was talking about it this morning. I requested a copy with through the email address that was given. And I haven't gotten any reply yet. And so I found online what's called a PDF that's called Guam Transportation Program, dated August 2018. But the upcoming program, which is Guam Transportation Improvement Program, for the next 5-year period, was not online. And so I have a couple questions about this, and I'll ask them now, but these are the same questions that I probably would ask if I can make it to that meeting on Wednesday. When is this program due to the Federal Highway Administration? And the reason I ask is because the last time I attended a presentation of a 5-year highway design priorities plan, it was this glossy poster, big posters, glossy, you know, it looked so festive, sweet smelling, you know, this, you know, high powered, you know, like, you know, MCs. It was Clifford Guzman was leading the presentation for Parsons, you know, as the hired, you know, MC of the program. And those of us who came were serious. We gave comments. And then we found out, and we were all supposed to give comments in writing and put them in a box. And you know, they were so happy that we were there. Parsons was there and all this, right? But then they told us at the very end of the evening that the package that was being unveiled that night was being mailed out to the Federal Highway Administration the next day. And our comments were simply going to be compiled and follow it as an addendum. The hearing, that hearing that I attended those years back, was just pro forma, to check off a public hearing requirement. But it was too late to include the comments, public comments, in the submittal. You know, we were talking about things like Epow Road. Now, I'm not talking about what I want out of it. But if they're supposed to have a hearing, a public hearing on a document that's been prepared, it's supposed to be prepared by the by not just DPW, but by its contractors, according to a stewardship agreement. Parsons Technology is one of them. And in the August 2018 document that you can pull down, it's 22 pages long, There are lists of ongoing projects and how much they're worth and planned projects and whatnot. So this coming Wednesday should be the ones that are prioritized for the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And we'd like to see that. But no matter what kind of comments you might have on it, it won't make a difference because they've already made up their mind. They've already consulted. They've already examined. You know, I did print out what's called program challenges from the August 2018 document. So this is a year-old Guam Transportation Program overview of federal aid program on Guam. And that is available. So under program challenges, these are the shackles that DPW has on. Accuracy of underground utility information. Limited understanding of federal compliance requirements among local construction firms and resistance to change. Now, what's that about? You know, the big companies that are doing our roads have limited understanding of federal compliance requirements. These are the same companies that go on base and rebuild the Anderson runway. How could they not have, compliance with federal requirements? Agency coordination processes. Well, that's why we have an election every 4 years. So we have a governor who's going to go crack some heads. We have an elected CCU who can tell its two utility agencies to work with the government to get the highways done right. Contract approval processes. Was that procurement? Announcing and procurement and all that good stuff. Right-of-way acquisition. Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Because Guam doesn't have money to buy property from people who own property, even if it's like 20 or 30 square meters. But if it's right there on a main, like Marine Drive, it's worth a lot of money. And it's got to be negotiated. It's got to be, But Guam doesn't have money to toss into the process. So some years ago, 10 years, 15 years ago, we got the authority to use federal highway money to buy rights-of-way properties. And what happened? Oh, remember the process I was telling you about the other week, about the other day, actually, or late last week, about the regulations going through the AAA process, and then when it gets to the legislature, it becomes just something the legislature can allow to go into effect without them acting. The process that the legislature itself put forth allows for agencies to propose regulations, and if there's no amendments to be made, then the legislature, then they go into effect without the legislature acting. Legislature is notified, they're given a copy, they're given so much time to act. But if the legislature acts and changes anything and adopts it with the changes, they may not conform with the granting agency. Also, they're not regulations because they're approved by law. So they're a kind of law that has no place in the code. And they're a kind of a regulation that has no place in the administrative rules as compiled by the compiler of laws, because they're not regulations. They were passed by law. So they don't have the same status. So rights-of-way acquisition is a topic all in itself. And so it also affects how much money is available for or the prioritization of projects, because if we can't use the federal money because the Guam legislature monkeyed with the language of land acquisition and made it non-compliant. And someday we'll go back and talk about this. Who did that? Whose brainstorm that was? Traffic management program. Oh, that's a challenge. Trying to manage traffic around here, as if we don't know how to do that. Procurement process. Oh, yeah, it's always a problem, procurement. Environmental clearance and compliance. You know, we've only been doing this for 20 or 30 years. We're beyond the generation that grew up with brand new EPA. Brand new EPA was 1970. In the first 5-7 years, yeah, it was kind of difficult. It's not difficult anymore. If you've got people in those positions who know what they're doing, and they're paid to know what they're doing, so they should know what they're doing. Limited resources within DPW. To do what? It's federally funded. And you have Parsons Brinkerhoff, and you've got somebody else called WPS or something that is overseeing the procedures needed to comply with federal requirements. Pacing of projects. Oh, yeah, that could be a problem in a small market. And limited labor pool, as in, oh, sorry, we don't have enough imported labor to build highways. And we can't seem to get the salary levels right to make these projects fit the budget that was based on prevailing, quote, prevailing wages of H2. And they haven't updated this yet, and they haven't allowed the market to raise salaries to the level where the demand for the jobs can be met by local labor. Not willing to get out there and work at the, quote, prevailing wage of H2 workers. And they won't allow it. They will not change their pricings. And so if the projects are priced at H2 labor levels and they're trying to get approval for it, they may get the approval and nobody's going to want to bid for it. Or they'll go ahead and do the bids with labor that they can't get. This is program challenges from a year ago, and nothing has budged. Some of these challenges, nothing's budged in 15 or 20 years. It's time to get beyond this. It is time to get beyond this. And I want to get beyond it. We keep electing governors, and we think we're going to get beyond it. And we don't seem to be able to get out of neutral here. Real Joe, it's 5:30. It's time for a seventh inning stretch. I'll get myself a sip of water, and we'll continue with more Tall Tales right after this.
Looking to relocate your business? Prime Space is available at the Camacho Landmark Center at the intersection of Marine Corps Drive and Chalon, San Antonio, next to Personal Finance Center. Located in central Tamuning, close to the airport, hotels, major shopping, restaurants, financial institutions, the hospital, clinics, schools, and GovGuam and federal agencies, your business can experience the benefits of this first-class commercial facility. Join other successful Guam businesses who have moved to this modern multi-purpose commercial center. Call Carlos Camacho, 300-7744 for more information.
Marcus Buckingham has insights into organizations that few people anywhere in the world have, which he earned as the chief researcher for global survey and business consulting company Gallup. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll share a few of Buckingham's key strategies as he's one of 5 exceptional speakers for the Live to Lead Guam Conference coming November 7th.
You can find daily transcripts of the Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try their featured special for September. Southern Spice Crispy Fried Chicken. Louisiana-inspired fried half chicken served with red beans and rice. Available in Agana and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Yay, all right. I see Richard Wittenbach Santos has joined us here online, and our Facebook Live is up and running. I'm able to verify that myself, but I don't hear your phone calls at 888-8255. I'm sure with all the interesting, exciting things going on in the community that you all have something to say, but I don't hear you. I don't see you on the phones, but we'll forge on. Up to now, only once did I mention dengue fever, right? And that was the, let's see. It was earlier on in the show. I think it had to do with the editorial, let's help our neighbors and others protect themselves from dengue, the post editorial from yesterday. That was back an hour ago. But, you know, there was on, in Saturday's Post, page 1, Guam dengue cases now 12. But, you know, in PDN, Steve Limtiaco says, Governor says dengue fever is, quote, under control. Was that Friday's paper? No, I think it was... yeah, it must be Saturday because I didn't write the date down on this. But this is the thing. I just want to take a look at these two articles because the increase from 10 to 12 cases on Guam was not revealed during the governor's, GVB CEO's public health briefing on Friday to the tourism industry stakeholders. It was revealed afterwards, after the governor announced that dengue fever is, quote, under control. That's a direct quote. So says Steve Limtiaco. She said, quote, we have this under control. We do. We are doing everything that is humanly and scientifically known, and we are doing it fast and expeditiously. Those are direct quotes. Steve Limtiaco reporting for the Pacific Daily News. And I believe him. He's a very good investigative journalist. And Kevin Kerrigan on Saturday, he writes Guam dengue cases now 12. And he lists down about 10 of the 12 dengue cases and what villages they're from. There's 4 in Dedido and 1 in Dedido-Gigo, Dedido/Gigo. And then this odd quote. The 2 other cases involved people living in multiple homes, so it's not certain in which village the infection occurred, said Dr. Suzanne Kaneshiro. Well, why not, if you're so concerned about the numbers, why not list some villages twice or 3 times? If a person has multiple places, multiple homes, then each of those homes should be listed. And they should say, sure, it adds up to 17, but it's because a couple of the cases have multiple places that we've had to address. Right? Isn't that information the public needs to know? The additional cases were reported following a briefing on the dengue outbreak for stakeholders in the island's visitor industry held Friday morning at Hilton Guam Resort and Spa. Dr. Kaneshiro said Guam's dengue cases were identified through a, quote, weekly reporting system involving the island's hospitals and clinics. And, you know, let's hope that public health is responding appropriately to all the multiple places and that the discussion was an attempt to explain why no village of origin was listed. Public health should have listed all village areas where they responded. We still don't know enough. You know, Dedito's a big village. Are they all in the same area? Are they at all the four corners of Dedito? And I see it says Dedito/Jigo. So right on the line, that's Woostig Road. And good. Okay. We've got a call on line 1. Ken, welcome to Tall Tales. You're my first call today. Half a day? Ken, are you there? No. What happened?
Can you hear me?
Can you
hear me out?
Nope, I can't hear you. You're breaking up real badly.
How about now?
That's better.
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that all Chamorro, all Chamorros of Guam, anyone who has an interest in a Chamorro homeland, I think should be considered stakeholders in this dengue fever issue. And also, for that matter, in the tourism industry, unless the GVB plans to take over what cultural entertainment they plan to put forth to the tourists, meaning more hula dancing, you know, and it's just, you know, the point being, if you want to have a cultural package, right, I would think the tourists want to see a Chamorro culture package. So the Chamorros automatically are a stakeholder. Is not only for the traditional cultural aspect, but simply because this is our homeland and we're living here as full time as residents. So, you know, I don't know why people are tiptoeing around the issue. This is a Chamorro homeland issue. Chamorros who consider this their homeland, they are stakeholders. So I urge everyone to participate. You know, and the elders.
Good point.
Yes. So that's pretty much all I want to say. And be proud. Why should we feel ashamed to say this is our homeland, and our leaders, our elders are going to take command and have a voice for our people, for the sake of our younger generation. Anyway, thanks for your time there, Daryl.
Yeah.
Listen, man.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I thought it was Ken, but it's not Ken, and I appreciate you calling in and letting us know your perspective on this. In fact, this goes back to the very, very beginning of you know, entertainment in the tourism industry on Guam back in the 1970s. You know, there was no local dance, but everyone who came out, you know, flew out from Japan for 4 or 5 days in Guam in connection with a honeymoon or whatever the deal was. They kind of expected to have some dancing and some you know some entertainment during the evening, and so the companies that were, you know, investing in tourism plant here, hotels and tour agents and whatnot, they looked around and they didn't find enough, you know, musicians to hire. You know, I mean, disco was big, and all these musicians were fired. they were all let go. And I was here during 74, 75 when this happened, and when disco started, and the clubs all converted from live music to disco scene. And all these musicians, practicing musicians on Guam, were just let go. The market fell out from them. And then there were no dancers, so they were bringing in dancers doing hula, and it wasn't Guam based. But they had to throw something in there because that's what the tourists expected. You know, it's the same with Guam product, the Guam products. Where are the Guam-based products? And so we had to get a product stamp of approval and a logo and all this stuff and inspectors and, you know. But what kind of products are we cranking out? What is it that we are producing for, basically producing locally for export? It's opportunity. Musicians and craftspersons and dancers and creative persons of all kinds, all descriptions. But people have to, you know, see the opportunity in that, and not in salaries in the States or in higher education or in government of Guam employment. You know, people have to be people. Creative types are going to see opportunity, and business people, you know, business-minded people. And part of it is that we really have to have education in our schools that's appropriate for the world that we live in, to prepare our young people to see opportunities in the world of work where it's satisfying, personally satisfying, and allows you to make a living here on Guam. You know, we don't have to shove people into construction jobs. We can show them how you can make a living in other areas. But we also have to have higher wages, because otherwise we're not going to have high enough wages to attract anyone into any of these fields. Or you can just make the decision to live poor, or only be temporary until you can move on and do something else. It's good for, you know, to do something as a 15 or 16-year-old dancer. You can dance in the hotels, but once you become an adult, you're going to move on. And hopefully there's more in the pipeline. And this is a difficulty. It's a small labor market. And we raise our children to do something more than culturally relevant activities. If there's no money in it, it's like being a volunteer for public radio, or, you know, it's okay if you can afford it. But if you're trying to raise a family, make a living, it's not satisfying enough. And this is a problem for our people to make a living in their own land with a booming tourism industry. And who's going to put together that critical mass? Who's going to be the entrepreneur that fields, that creates companies that hire people who can make a living entertaining our guests in the tourism industry? Is opportunity there, but you know, I'm not wired that way, but I know that there are some people who are, and that's what we're looking for. Let's see. Trying to find out what your comments are on Facebook Live. So we talked about dengue fever, and thank you for the call. I saw an article in today's paper that was really interesting. Not for it itself. And it's, let's see. It's in the PDN, today's PDN on page 18. And the article is, "For Ben Platt, a perfect pitch leads to the politician." And the first paragraph here is, "To hear Ben Platt describe it, producer Ryan Murphy's pitch for him to star the new Netflix series, The Politician, had all the planning, precision, and vision of a successful presidential campaign." I'm not going to talk about the Netflix series, but it got me thinking. it got me thinking here. Oh, Richard Leon says, we exported the casuals. We grew the casuals, and then we exported them. That's, but don't worry. Patrick will be at the PBS Gala on Friday night. So anyway, I'm not going to review the Netflix series. I'm not going to go any deeper into the story that appears in the paper here on page, let's see, what's that, page 18 and continued on page 23 of today's PDN. But I want to draw the following conclusions from the shows and the actors' intentions, what they intend to portray in the series. Ambitious young people are emulating today's role models for success, quote, success, in politics. With all the deceit, self-centeredness, self-dealing, and absence of public purpose. Sunday, a week ago, we saw a column by Dr. Sam Batance urging young people, this is a local column, urging young people to practice oratory to become future leaders. You know, oratory. It's the ability to stand up and give these, great public speech on one or another subject. We have educated generations in the profession of, quote, communications, whose practitioners focus on manipulation in various media, rather than promoting understanding and educating the public via the more substantial profession of journalism. Substantial and principled. Will the upcoming generations of residents and voters, citizens, continue to fall for a skillful deployment of self-serving portrayals and terms of art, quote, terms of art, instead of dictionary-accurate words, use of words, and objective logic? The political spin that the voters of today are falling for. Are the future generations going to fall for that same stuff that we are? That the majority of us right now are? Look at the government we've got. Spin, 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 spin. Is that not what this Netflix series, The Politician, what his lead character will find out from his high school peer audience? Are they going to look at him and go, yeah, he's the one who should be our senior class president, student body president, by using the same tools that we see our politicians today use? Or are they going to reject him? Will the writers of this series accurately reflect today's reality as art should? Or are they going to portray where they want it to go as marketers and political players? The shaping of careers, not the shaping of communities. Not the shaping body politic for personal reasons and personal ambition, not service of the community. We've got 10 minutes to go here in today's edition of Tall Tales. Let's take a break, our last break of the afternoon, and come back to wrap up today's show.
30 years ago, the very first Subway restaurant opened in Guam. Now, 15 restaurants later, Subway Restaurants is celebrating this milestone with a buy one, get one free offer every weekend, starting September 14th through October 12th. Come celebrate 30 years. Enjoy your favorite sandwich, salad, or wrap, all made with freshly sliced veggies and bread baked in every store. Take advantage of this buy one, get one deal. It's Subway Restaurants' way of saying thank you, Guam, for 30 wonderful years. Subway, make it what you want. want.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Get the latest updates as Blake and Mike break down the upcoming action. Get your game on with the boys on the hotline, 888-TALK, or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on The Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
To the Post. To the Post. To the Guam Daily Post. Yesterday's Guam Daily Post on page 1. I'm not going to talk about the $27 million surplus projected by the end of the fiscal year, which was like about 52 minutes ago. No. I mean, the money's still rolling in, right? I'm not going to talk about the projected surplus. It's great, and when it happens, we'll get more details about it, and then we'll talk about it, because it's where that money goes. Because that means that there had to have been $27 million received more than was authorized to be spent. And so we'll see some bills coming out of the legislature going, oh yeah, you can spend it on this, that, and the other. Or not. Or it'll be spent just on what it is that, I got a phone call coming in, but no, I can't do that. Let's see. I get a little message there. Okay, 27 million surplus projected by the end of the year. But no, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about another non-story. And that is the one that's right next to it on page 1. Former DPW manager moves to port. Truck follows him. You know, we have these self-driving cars now on Guam. You know, this forlorn 11-year-old truck following its master down the road from DPW to the Port Authority of Guam. Just can't live without him. And neither can the rest of us, apparently, because it's there. But it's a non-story. There's an 11-year-old truck, and the driver of that truck is now making $134,314 a year plus benefits, which is like how much more than what he was making? About $74,000 more than he was making when he was at DPW. He can't afford his own truck. Consider the truck just another perk. Oh, here's your 11-year-old truck. That's okay. We don't need it over at Public Works. We're fine. And I know this guy. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Good guy. He's competent at DPW to maintain government buildings like Government House and others where it's not necessary to know engineering or how to repair things according to code, current code, or renovations that you can do on a shoestring budget, a handful of skilled or so staff workers at DPW. He will, mark my words, he will be called upon by political leaders at all hours and over the weekends and after emergencies like typhoon direct passages or civil strife. He's going to be called on, just as if he's part of Homeland Security. And he will respond in that 11-year-old truck. He will be there. I know the guy. He's always there. He's a hardworking guy, and he jumps. He'll respond as he has done for years as a trusted technical/logistical eyes and ears for political leaders like the governor and the speaker. And so I say, just let the truck go. He's going to be working. He's going to be working. He's been working. He's been doing this stuff for years and years. After being a political gopher for years, at least now he's getting paid well for his service. And now he's not being paid by general fund dollars, but port fees. Just think. His functional successor at DPW will get a promotion and promotion and salary, right? And a new truck. Isn't this what the economist out at UOG was talking about when she was saying we need to create more middle-class jobs and support local retailers? You know, buy another truck from, you know, one of the truck vendors here on Guam, because there's another up-and-coming head of building maintenance over at DPW who's due for a new truck and has and who will hold the job for, you know, 15 or 20 years, and is going to be hopping out of bed and running hither and yon and hauling people around and getting out there right at the tail end of typhoon direct passage, who's going to be trusted, just as the fellow who just went down to the port. They'll both be out there. And as GovGuam workers go, they turn in a good day's work. And so it's not a problem. And this is really a non-story. It's just kind of funny, though, because Port is supposed to actually support all of its own activities. It's not really supposed to be subsidized by the government of Guam. That's the story. Why is the government of Guam subsidizing the Port Authority of Guam, which is an autonomous agency? So why are assets of DPW surplus to the Port Authority of Guam? But it's minor. It's really minor. So we don't need to talk about this. It's a non-story. Before we go, I should say that there was a story back on PDN on the 22nd of September where a man suspected of hitting a bicyclist with a car is only being charged with vehicular negligence and driving while impaired. But it's a lesser charge than driving under the influence or a collision with injuries. And here I am, a bicycle rider. It makes me kind of wonder whether I should, hang my butt out there for any drunk Tom, Dick, or Harry to come up behind me. Well, we're here again. It's 5:59. Time for me to go. I'll be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who will be back in a week. So stay tuned. Greg Gibson will be here tomorrow morning at 6, and I'll be back at 4 tomorrow afternoon. And in the meantime, y'all have a good evening and day tomorrow.